Hey guys, welcome to the Blue Collar Voices Show. Today, the guest of honor is Z. Hopefully, he will tell us how to pronounce his name. Z built a construction company, then switched careers and became a diver. In both of these careers, he just dug in, learned the craft, and has become successful. Z came to the U.S. legally, but he kind of overstayed his welcome and became an illegal. We will find out how that issue got resolved, how he started and ran a successful construction company, and dig into what he's doing now, diving. So Z, welcome to the Blue Collar Voices Show.
Hello, good morning. I'm happy that we meet over here.
Absolutely. So why do they call you Z?
Well, it started because my name is quite difficult to pronounce. It's like missing the vowels. It's Zdenek. And to pronounce Zdenek, it's quite challenging. So it became 20 different nicknames, and the Z is the easiest one. I realized people are able to comprehend.
Sure.
I was Denzel, Xanadu, Zyrtec, DZ, ZD, you name it. So people just couldn't get it right.
That's funny. So looking at your bio that you sent over, I know that you came to America quite some time ago, and the way you got here was very interesting. Tell us a little bit about that story.
Well, I came over here after my military service. I was deployed in former Yugoslavia for quite a time. And then me and my friend, we just wanted to visit the States. And I said to myself that I'll buy myself professional mountain bikes because I wanted to enter the racing back home. So we came over here and everything changed. We tried to live like people live over here. We got the job, although we didn't need it. We had the credit cards with us with, a lot of money. So we just started to work and see what the framing is and this and that. And then my mountain biking dream kind of went sideways. I got badly sick over here. I got, God only knows what it was, but my mountain biking career ended right there. However,
Aww.
I bought the bike. I still have it.
Oh, wow. How old is it now?
Well, it'll be 20 years or 18 years, something like that. It's still a pretty good bike.
Yeah. How much did you spend on that bike?
Well, I spent $3,300, and they gave me
Holy crap.
20 years ago, about. So that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money today.
Because back home, I couldn't get it on time. They say it's going to take about a year, and I'm like, I wanted to start the racing career right away.
Right.
So I came over here to buy it, and here I am.
Awesome. So. Well, you kind of do a lot of different things. And to kind of summarize, what is it that you do not into the details, but just summarize, what is it that you kind of do day to day, week to week now? Explore and talk about your operation.
All right. So day to day, I'm still involved with my construction company, which I had built for those 17 years. So there's a paperwork and advertising and keep in touch with clients. However, I don't do that work anymore. So that's my daily basis to keep that organized. But mostly I'm building my diving and salvage diving company, which is my passion. So a lot of office work, a lot of reaching out to people. And then I spend a lot of time under the water. So today, I would say it's probably 90% of the time I'm really involved work-wise with my dive company, and 10-20%, whatever there is left, I still entertain my construction. I have a lot of great clients. We became friends, so I still entertain that. It's just, you just can't kill it. You can't get rid of it.
Sure. And with the construction company, do you have you said you don't really do that work anymore. I assume you've got guys out there doing the work that you're just managing?
Yeah, I pass it basically on my friends from Czech Republic. They always wanted to do business. So I told them how to do business. I showed them how to do all the computer agenda. Everything was involved. And today, these guys that used to work for me, they're great. They're business owners.
That's awesome.
It's like fantastic for me to see. Like, they're business owners. They know what they're doing. It's just great.
you have helped your circle of friends, and they've helped you all at the same time, all elevate each other.
That's right.
That's awesome. So let's step back in time. You came over to America, and for a while, you weren't exactly legal, were you?
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, I've crossed the border legally. I had the chance to meet with the immigration officer. That was fun. My friend, I had to be yelling the translation to him when the officer was asking, like, how long you coming for, this and that. So I was on a line and yelling it to him in Czech. And finally, he asked him how much money you have. So I was like, Paul, tell him how much money you have. And he says $20,000. That was the truth. But the immigration officer, he's like, okay, this guy, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He gave him a stamp and we went in.
That's awesome.
So it was fun.
I would say that getting in was perhaps a little easier than it might be today.
Oh, yes and no. And my outlook was, and Paul, my friend, he's a good guy. We came over here and he told me, just let's see how those Americans live.
Right.
I was like, all right, so we'll see how they live. So when I got here and when my mountain bike dream, went sideways, I got sick, physically I had whatever the problem was. I said to myself, well, if I'm here, I'm going to build a company. I was working as a painter for some Slovak, Polak people, my community, maybe like 3 months. And literally one day I stepped away. I say, I will no longer hang out with my community. I want to see what this country is all about. And it was a tough call. I'm standing in front of the paint store. All my Slovak, Polish friends, they passed by. And I had my English dictionary and asking the Americans if I can work for them, that I'll do a good job. I saved up the money. I bought the old beat up car. I bought the tools and I showed up like that. So one day I got hired by some American company. I was very enthusiastic, gave them great job, learning the English. And I was lucky working with one American who actually taught me all the English I know till today. His name is Greg. Excellent teacher.
Nice.
Then I went to the, to tax, how do I call it? Office, because I said to myself, well, I'm here illegally. I'm an illegal alien. However, I want to have like a clean slate. I want to prove that I'm doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. So I registered myself as paying the taxes. So I remember the accountant asked me, like, who are you? And I'm like, well, my name is Z. I'm the illegal alien, and I would like to start paying the taxes over here. The old man looked up, and he's like, can you repeat yourself? So, and that was also the plan in my mind. I got my tax ID number. I opened up the legal company, painting. I was painting for like $130 a day. With all my tools, all the cars, so meaning I made no money at all. Mm-hmm. So first year when I did my accounting, I had $600 left. So I worked every weekend, you name it, all the time. Mm-hmm. But I've learned a lot. I got my English all set up. I was able to make a phone call, got my first cell phone. That was like amazing.
Right.
That was like, it's a new life. I have a cell phone, I was able to make a phone call in English. That was amazing. I remember calling people out of Penny Saver for the apartment rentals just to practice talking over the phone. So people would hang up on me. I was like, all right, that's fine. I'll call another number.
There's plenty of numbers to call.
Yeah. So I was practicing. I was working very, very hard on it.
Sure. If I went to another country, let's just say, your country of origin, and I wanted to speak English everywhere, I would have zero success. If I want to be successful, I would need to learn the language of the country. Yeah.
So that's why I stepped away from my community, even though it was extreme hardship for me. But at a short time, I've learned things worth of a couple of human lives, I would say.
Okay. I want to know, how is it that you were able to resolve the illegal situation and get all that squared away?
Well, being here about 15 years as a legal owner of the legal company. I mean, not an illegal owner of legal company, paying the taxes for 15, 16 years. I mean, I felt pretty proud about that status.
Sure.
And so I kind of established myself, got a nice truck, this and that, got myself a boat, still working hard, but also enjoying myself. However, taking the risk every day, I can just be sent home and everything will be left behind.
Right.
But I'm a risk taker, so I either live it or not. So what happens, as I also got my social life a little bit back, I met the girl. We started to date, and we had a great time. We had a great time, but I was too much of the worker. We're still friends.
Right.
And that was the complaint. So after 6 years, our together voyage fell apart.
Right.
But that also brought the legal situation on track that I got my green card. Because that's a standard procedure.
Right. Okay. And so at this particular point in time, are you a legal American citizen or are you still on a green card status?
No, today I have my passport, so I'm a
citizen,
American citizen. I have a citizenship.
Mm-hmm. Welcome to America. You know what? You're the epitome of a great American citizen, somebody that works hard and just takes care of shit.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
What I say when people say that this can't be done and that can't be done and this is discrimination, I don't believe that stuff. I really don't believe that stuff. When the immigration officer with my wife asked my wife to prove her income so she can support me, I felt offended. So I pulled out my briefcase and I'm like, here's a 15 years of the tax returns. Check it out. I can support her family. I don't want her to support me at all.
Right.
So the immigration officer looked at me like, how did that happen? I was like, well, as an illegal, you can still decide to do the right thing. And that's really what I've done.
That's a great statement right there. So that is awesome. Now, what I want to dig into a little bit, and we'll get to your diving, of course, but I'd like to dig into your backstory about a little more detail about the process of, you mentioned it, but the detail of starting a construction company, some of the journeys, what lessons you've learned. And I'd really like to hear some interesting stories and get a good handle on that.
All right. So I'll tell you how you start a business. This is the recipe.
Okay.
Well, I had no business experience. I graduated as a military officer. So there is no business model because we're using the taxpayers' money, right, in the Army. So
absolutely.
No business model at all. So, but when I got over here, and like I said, when I stepped out from my Czech, Slovak, Polish community, I got hired by an American company. I've learned the English, this and that. But I disagreed with a lot of things what the company was doing towards the craftsmanship, workmanship, and towards to the customers. So I was a lot of time on the edge with the owner. So one day I say, Paul, I'd like to be still your friend. I'd like to see you on the street, shake your hand, and have everything on good terms. But if we stay working together, it's not going to go that way. So I said, please let me go. We done. Because I would really like to be able to shake your hand when I meet you. And if we stay, it's going to escalate.
Right.
So, we got apart. And then I said to myself, so what am I going to do? So I went over to Staples. I made a name of the company in my hat and got the business cards printed with no company existing, nothing. So I got my set of business cards, and everywhere I went, morning coffee, library, grocery store, I always gave people a card. I was like, hey, I'd like to give you my card. You can keep it or you can, throw it away, but I can do a good job for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I just gave it to people's hands like every single day. I went to laundromat, put it there, but nice business card. Then I got the call from the lady from the library. I did one job. second job, and I always followed up on job. If I finished painting the bedroom, I call them up 2 weeks later, ask them if I can come over to see if there is any problem. And that's how I was building it, step by step. So, like I said, I got my first phone calls with the business card. Then I got my company opened because I registered myself to pay taxes. That all happened in the course of maybe 3 months. It was fast.
Yes.
So there was no internet back then. So all the word of mouth, I was really following up on everything, and that really set me apart from other companies. If you have your bedroom painted and 2 weeks later the guy calls you and asks you if you're happy, if you need something, people love that. People did. All the estimates back then were in person. I hand wrote everything. It was really like a lot of work. Today we're just getting the emails. We don't even answer the emails. We're very selective. It's different. It was personal touch.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to build a business that way. Then basically the computer and internet and all that stuff I got in my office that elevated the game, because I was able to list my company for free on many internet directories, put the pictures in there, and the company actually started to exist on a Google search. So that was a big step. Then I attended every possible Chamber of Commerce meeting in different areas. I thought about that would be good. So I paid all kinds of memberships. So again, bringing the money back to states or back to the community. I had my advertising at the bank. So all the festivals, I always had my booth. It cost me a lot of effort, a lot of money. But all these things combined kind of got my name out.
Right.
And basically standing by the product, what I've done, and me being on a job and being very thorough. So that was a little recipe starting from nowhere, asking people at the grocery store, giving them the cards. And later on, the company got very successful, I would say. We did small jobs up to, let's say, Kenneth Cole's residence or residences, and, the people high up there. And I never refused the smallest job, and I gave the same attention as the big job. So that's kind of like how I started.
And when you originally started, you were doing only painting?
Yeah, I did only painting. And later on, there came a realization that painter is somehow, I'd be honest with you, I felt like neglected. Like, oh, anybody can paint. My 3-year-old can paint it. I felt
Right.
that way. I never felt the level of appreciation. And many times I saw the example when the carpenter installed one shelf and everybody was talking about it. How great the shelf is. And we painted rooms and sanded the compound, and you got it in your lungs, this and that. And it wasn't as big of the piece of the conversation as that shelf for the microwave. So
You'd make that painting surface really be flat and right and looking good, but that's like an unseen to the average eye, the average person.
yeah, we got really, let's say, the trim work on a big residence is expensive. We had the best trim work in all Chappaqua area and Bedford. You can actually see a reflection of your face on a wooden trim. That's
Wow.
how smooth everything was.
That's pretty smooth.
I was always saying it's going to be car-like finish, and that's what it was. So later, as the economy was changing around the 9/11, the economy changed a lot. A lot of jobs shut down. People were uncertain what to do.
Right.
And I still had that model of one shelf was more appreciated than painting the whole house. So basically, overnight, I said to myself, well, the painting business is kind of dying right now. People starting painting themselves. Everybody is hanging on to their houses. Their people are not purchasing new houses much. They're just fixing their houses because the economy was bad. So within 2 days, I opened up another company. Not that I was a carpenter, I was not. But the name of the company was Alpine Home Improvement Company. And
There you
I'm
go.
like, you know what? I'm going to do it. And I always find people who know the trade. So I said Alpine Home Improvement Company, carpentry, painting, and more. I got new logo, business cards, internet presence, whole 9 yards. I spent a couple $1,000s on it. And I presented myself as a carpenter and painting company. And at that point, people asked me, oh, can you do the entertainment cabinet build up? And I'm like, sure, I can. So I brought my friends who knew how to do it, and I got the jobs done.
Right.
And along the side, I also learned how to do all that. So later on, I was able to do things by myself.
Absolutely. It's an approach and an understanding of how things work. It may be a little bit different, but it's still just putting blocks together, basically. And I summarize that. I make it sound a little bit more simple, but it's just, if you have that skill of knowing how to do things, then you have that skill of knowing how to do things.
And if you don't, you have to have a courage and say, I will figure that out. I'm going forward.
Absolutely.
Because there is not much time in life. So that's the way I look at it.
Right.
Because I remember, just to wrap it up, because once I offered some trim installation, was a simple trim around one door. And I said to the customer that I will install that trim. And the lady told me, oh, well, you know what? I want professional. You are just a painter.
Oh.
But that's all right. I understood how people see that. And I'm like, if I would tell her I'm a carpenter, then she would say, oh, that's great. Please install the trim. So that's actually helped me when the economy crashed. I say, this is what I need to do. I need to change the name. We are carpenters, this and that. And people took me differently overnight.
When you put yourself out as a carpenter, even though you included the painting, did people feel that maybe you could not paint as well because you were a carpenter?
No, I told them it hand to hand. So when we build a carpentry, we also build it with the painting and the finishing in mind.
Okay.
Because we have the experience. So people actually like that idea.
Turnkey.
That the building of the product will go hand to hand with the finishing of the product.
Very nice.
Yeah, that was a game changer. That was the name of the change of the name of the company was a game changer.
So you were doing the home. Did you expand to doing commercial?
Yeah, we did commercial. We did some hospitals, the elderly homes. We did commercial, residential. I never turned any work down. And stuff what I didn't know, I found the people who can help me or who can educate me, or I read the books how to do certain things, and never turned any job down. Never had.
What's the largest job you ever did? And what was the scope?
Well, one good job was, good job. The big job, probably the tallest and biggest building. It's a Buddhist monastery in Carmel, New York. It was very challenging because the building itself is 138 feet high with many levels, and I was 2 years in touch with all those monks. They wanted to have the proposal. They found me online. I gave them proposal, and it took them 2 years actually to build up the trust. The one key thing, when they told me that they had somebody else do the jobs and they will use some mountain climbing technique, I said, well, if you want me ever to come over and give you any advice or look how the other contractor is doing, I'll do that service for free, even though I wasn't rewarded the job.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a great thing. And I always followed up. It turned out that mountain climbing technique didn't work, which I kind of knew. And 2 years later, after still being in touch with them, they called me. We discussed it. It was well over $100,000 project. So I felt very honored. They gathered some abbots from out of country to sign the contract. It was a big thing. There is a lot of trust. We were drinking the little tea from the little cups, right, and having a little ceremony while we were signing the contract. And we used a big articulating lift to get that 137, elevation. And we painted the whole building and built a great relationship with all the monks. had a great food every day. Whatever they were eating, very healthy. It was a great, great journey. And over the time, we built the bathrooms and did a lot of things for that monastery.
Did you originally just paint it and it was an existing building, or did you build the building as well?
Now, the building was built and we did the exterior painting on it. That was a combination of the red and brown color. It's beautiful. You can see it online. And like I said, after that relationship and they saw the progress, they had other buildings. They wanted to do upgrades of the existing buildings, like the bathrooms and stuff like that. So we did that as well.
Very nice.
I felt very, very honored that I was the one who actually gained their trust. And that put very big of the burden on my shoulders to deliver.
Yes.
And I was able to deliver. So that was a great, great time.
That's very cool. What is the mountain climbing technique?
Well, I used to mountain climb, and you probably saw people hanging down from the ropes. So that's the idea of what they wanted to do.
Paint by rappelling? Rappel down and paint and like work your way up, or what?
Yeah, people wanted to install the ropes and lines and being attached to that. And it's kind of like when you see people washing the windows. Mm-hmm. So they wanted to paint the building that way. And that would never work, but they gave it a shot and it didn't. So that was the mountain climbing, if probably I'm not calling that right, but that was the idea.
Okay. I've never even considered that anybody would ever paint that way. You always see scaffolding or, like you talked about, the equipment that will lift you up.
That building was nearly impossible to do the scaffolding, and the lift was scary. I never operated such a lift. I had it delivered on a job site. The guy gave me 20-minute instruction. The next thing you know, my butt was squeezed and I was 130 feet up in the air.
Exactly.
I was like, gosh, I couldn't even move up there. You know? Yeah. I was like a stone.
When I get to that kind of height and I look down, my hands clench, and it's just, for some reason, heights like that just affect me.
Yeah, I have a same feeling, but I knew I have to get through it, so
right.
We did it.
Have you ever built any buildings from scratch, like the walls and everything all the way up?
No, we never built a building from scratch. We did, let's say, the interior modifications, different rooms, bedrooms, but we never built a building from scratch. We never done that.
Did that include moving walls, like taking down a wall, putting up a new wall?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. We've done that. It's just so much you can do in that construction that you need several lives, and I don't want to do it.
Absolutely. It's a whole new skill set. It's a different workflow.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you do any electrical?
No, we stay away from electrical. If I ever did the electrical, like a ceiling fan, I sent a picture of all those wires looking at me to my friend electrician, and I was like, "Can you please tell me how to connect it together?"
Yeah, stay out of the electrical, please.
Yeah, and if I showed him the way I have it connected, I was like, "Jeff, before I turn the switch on, can you look at it?" And he's like, "Don't touch the switch." So that's my electrical.
There you go. Hey, it's no shame in that. We cannot know everything.
I'm not interested in that, to be honest with you.
Yeah. You kept building your construction company, but at some particular point in time, you got involved in diving.
Yeah, that was a one particular day when I said to myself, well, and just like you say, I can be painting, I can be remodeling, I can think about building the buildings from the scratch and this and that. And I'm like, how much tools I will have to have and how much my own life will have to be dedicated to handling those tools. And that got scary to me. I'm like, if I have to invest the days of my life just to go through every single tools to elevate in that construction area, I was like, I saw it like painted in a black colors. I didn't like that idea. I was always attracted to water. And one day it was fall. We were painting some house on the outside, and I was exploring the idea to actually get to the seas and be on a boat. I had my own boat, as I mentioned, and I found the man who was looking for the crew to deliver the sailboats to Caribbeans. So I called him up. I asked if they need a crew. He said yes. About 2 weeks later, I closed down all my businesses. I went to my insurance agents. I always saw them like every 2 weeks. So all the clerks and the girls, they knew me. So I went in and they're like, "Hey Z, how you doing?" I'm like, "Doing great. I have a question for you guys." And they're like, "Okay, what is it this time?" and I'm like, "So what would it take if I would close all my businesses all together?" And it was a great setup because the next door is my accountant. So the workers' compensation, all that works together with the accountant.
Mm-hmm.
And they looked at me. I was like, "How long would it take?" And they're like, "Well, 2 days and everything can be closed down." I'm like, "That's it." So I closed down the companies just like that. However, my trusty clients, they still call me, but I no longer need my company. So I closed down the companies altogether, and I said to my landlord that I'm finishing up my apartment. I put everything in the storage. I kind of like pulled the rug under from my feet myself. And I went on a boat. We went to St. Martin.
But it's a hell of an adventure, right?
Yep. Like I said, I got rid of the apartment. I got rid of my companies. And I said to myself, well, I want to see how I can prove myself to me again. So we went on the sailboat. It was cool. It was a big storm coming from Newport to Bermuda. Like the boat, I don't know. You couldn't stand. You were like laying on the floor sideways in order to hold the wheel to steer the boat. So and I asked the captain, I'm like, "Hank, is this okay? Because I'm scared." He's like, "Yeah, that's fine." I was like, "All right, so I trust you."
Right.
So that's how we went. And then I stayed in that St. Martin for several months. And I found a dive shop. I did my dive master class because I was thinking that I'll do the instructor and all that. So that was my St. Martin visit. So I stayed there 6 months. That was great. Then I came back and I did my other education. I did my captain's license. And that's when things actually started to change and I got into the diving. So what happened was when I came back and I was doing my captain's license, I met a couple guys and they were doing the marine construction. And I asked them if I can work with them. So I did over the weekends. I worked for free because I told them I just want to clear my head and do something different.
What is marine construction?
Marine construction, those people, let's say they fixing the bulkheads, installing the pilings or removing the pilings, securing the shoreline, that those would be the bulkheads, doing the salvages, anything with breaks under the water.
But you're definitely diving when you're doing all of this.
I was working on deck.
Okay.
I was working on deck, helping with the cranes, rigging stuff. So that's what I was doing over the weekend. And I always asked them, if you have anything under the water, let me know. And they always said the commercial divers. But however, there was one job and they say, "Hey Z, do you have your stuff?" I only had the simple regulator and 13 cubic feet tank. It's like a Poland Spring water bottle.
Okay.
It's a small little tank of air. So anyway, I jumped into the Hudson River. They wanted to rig up some piling, maybe like a 10, 15 feet of water. So I jumped in and I was shocked. There was like no visibility.
Oh.
Like it's obvious, but I only dove to St. Martin where you can see
the bottom.
Yeah, 50 feet, 100 feet, whatever. So I said, I'll do it. And when I jumped into the Hudson River, I got scared, but I said I didn't want to admit that. So I laid on the bottom in the mud, scared like crazy, pitch black. And I'm like, I can never tell anybody that I'm scared.
Until today.
Yep. So I found the piling and put the sling around it, came up. They rigged up to the crane. And with that 13 cubic feet tank, which is a small tank, as I said, I rigged up like 8 pilings until I was completely out of air. So they were kind of amazed because they had some other commercial diver, and he says it's too dark and too much of the current and too much of the entanglement, and he's done. But I got the job done, and ever since, the company kept calling me, and I kept buying more equipment. I've learned a lot, and I got my foot in the door that way.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
And a huge part of that is just doing it.
I'm always saying that you don't have to be worried about the problems. Whatever you do in life, or whatever I do in life, I'm never worried about the problems, because one thing is for sure, they will come at the right time. So I'm always worried about how am I going to do it right now? And the problems, they'll come up, and then I'm going to deal with them. So this way I'm not getting stopped from my doings, analyzing all the problems.
Fearing the unknown.
Yeah. My sister would say, oh, this could be a problem. This could be this way. She won't start new thing as fast as I do. Well, so this is me.
Because 10 things could happen, but those 10 things might not happen.
Right. The problems will come. That's a sure thing. So I don't have to think about it.
Currently, you're doing your diving. How long have you been doing diving now? Say once you started taking money for diving, how many years has that been?
Not that long. I would say 6 years. And when I turned that into my own company, probably 3 years. That's what I would say. Yes.
And considering what you do, is there a huge demand? I mean, is there just plenty of work for you, what you do is diving?
Well, yes and no. Like New York City, all the coast is built, along the water, and a lot of the building and structures are supported on the pilings, meaning the coastline is kind of extended into the water. There is one particular hotel which is completely built on the pilings, meaning above the water. So there are a lot of things that go wrong. They need inspections. They need to be fixed or built or replaced. So there is a lot of work. However, it is very, very small community. So if you're good, you will have a lot of work. If you don't show up one day because you're busy somewhere else, you get replaced with somebody else, and that could be the end with that particular client. So there is a lot of work, but also there isn't, because it's a very small family of people, and there are more divers than work, I would say. So you have to keep your edge. You have to be good. You have to be available, and you have to be always properly equipped and show up when they're wanted. If it's 1 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, or drop your dinner, drop the conversation with your friends, jump in a truck and go. That's the kind of thing which you have to be ready for in order to have a lot of work.
You've mentioned timeliness a couple of times now. Thinking back with your construction career and what you're doing with diving, how much do people weigh your availability and being on time versus your skill level? How do people look at that, and what's the level of importance for both of those?
I'm not sure the percentage or how to split it, but number one would be the availability. That's the number one thing. And then immediately with that goes the equipment and then the skills. Because usually having the equipment is based on the skills, what you have.
Right.
Because if you have the great skills and you don't have the equipment, then you're not going to do the job. If you have the good equipment, more than likely you have those skills because you acquired that equipment. And if your skills are a little less somewhere, many times the equipment can make up for it. But it doesn't go the other way around. If you have the great skills, you don't have the equipment, you might as well sit home.
Let's tie that back into painting just for a second, because not very many people at all are going to relate to the diving so much. But with painting and construction and that type of thing, a lot more people will identify. If you have a homeowner, based on your experience, that needs somebody to paint, would they be more accepting and happy with a painter that may not be quite as polished and exact and that amazingness, just a good job versus being on time and making them feel good about the job versus a high level of skill, but they never show up on time. What the average person, homeowner that is needing that kind of work done, which one would they appreciate more?
All right. I think it starts when the homeowner wants to get something done. I think it starts on relationship. That's the way I look at it. Meaning, if they pick up the phone and they reach out to you, to me, to any other company for their painting project, the key of the relationship would be you answer the phone, you know what to say, you show up, you tell them when you're going to come, and you're going to come at that time. That would be the first kind of opening gate, whatever you do in life, building the good relationship. So that relationship at the beginning is not based on your skills, nothing what you've done in life. It's just a pure relationship, being on time, answering, and being honest. So I think those are the most valuable things. But once you being on time and you're honest, it ties up with what do you do. So if you say that you do a good job, you're being honest and you delivered a good job, it supports one to another. But to open up the door, I think you need to implement a good relationship strategy or just have a good heart. That's how you get the door opened. And then the skills and the performance comes right after. If that answers your question somehow.
It does. That's a great answer. And I appreciate you delving into that. So with your diving career and what you're doing now, what's something really cool that you've done that may be outside the normal, just a really unique experience?
Oh boy. Well,
or two or three or four of them.
So the unique experience is that I'm still here and I'm able to talk to you. So that's kind of unique after everything what I've done.
Sure.
So that would be one. We should keep that off the records. Well, the interesting stuff was I write the articles about my diving ventures. There is a magazine which is called Boating on the Hudson and Beyond. And every month I write an article over there.
Nice.
But anyway, one cool stuff was there was a barge about 300 feet long, and the barge sunk in New York City. However, at the low tide, just the upper deck was awash, maybe like half a foot. And the barge was 25 feet, the freeboard. So 25 feet tall, if you want to call it.
Okay. And
they had the big holes on the side, 1 by 1 foot, 2 by 8 foot, huge holes, about like 60, 80 feet long, series of holes. So I got the call on that the barge went down. So I came over with little plugs and epoxy to patch the little holes. So I got there. It's going to be a quick job. And then I dove on it, and 25 feet down there, I still saw the barge. Then I saw the big holes, and I actually went through the hole as the water pushed me through, went inside of the barge without even knowing.
Uh-huh.
So the amazing stuff about this, it was in the New York Harbor, so the water is dark. There is a lot of turbidity. You don't see much. The wakes are easily 3 to 5 feet high, so it pushes you against any object you are working. So you don't have no stability, no visibility. And I was able actually to patch all those holes by myself with the plywood, with the screw gun down there, until it was patched enough. We waited for the low tide, put the pumps in there, and 3 weeks later, that big giant came up. So I did all that work in the water by myself, 3 weeks straight. I just had the top support to giving me the countless and countless screws. I remember buying the Cobalt drill bits because they're hard. They're the only drill bits they went through the barge, because first I had to drill the hole through the plywood, through everything, hold the plywood in place. I had a whole system, and then I had to match that hole in the plywood with the screw, with the hole in the barge, and put the screw through it.
Sure. I bet that first one was really tough.
Yeah, you're thinking like about those wakes. So then I said we're going to do all the work overnight when there is less traffic. And that was the key. But again, it was 3 weeks straight. I was tired. After the job, I slept. I was home for 10 days and I couldn't figure myself out. That was crazy. And I remember buying those cobalt bits. The reason why I said it, because you go to Home Depot and you buy the 4mm cobalt bits. And I had over 1,000 holes, and each bit probably did 3 holes. And then you had to be replaced. So every local Home Depot, they were out of those bits because I kept buying.
Because of you.
Yeah. I went to Home Depot and I buy like 50 of them. 50. I bought a whole rack. And I'm like, gosh. So I went to Jersey and I went to Putnam County and Westchester County and New York City. And I grabbed all those bits.
That's hilarious.
From, so I probably bought, I don't know, 600 of those bits just to make it happen, you know.
What size hole were you drilling?
It was a 4mm holes. And then I had the self-tapping screws. And today the barge is up. It's 300 feet. It came up like Godzilla, you know, like a monster from under the water. It came up at like 1 o'clock in the morning after 3 weeks. We had the big pumps, 8-inch and 10-inch pumps. So finally the barge came up, and at 25 feet above the water, it's a huge barge, 300 feet long. And as we stood up on a deck, we saw the lights of the New York City, and we were rising with that barge. So you like felt that you're riding the big Godzilla over the city. It was amazing.
That's awesome.
The accomplishment was, I can't describe it. So that was one interesting shot.
I assume after the barge came up, they towed it, dry docked it, repaired the hull, welded in new plates, all that kind of thing.
Well, I think a lot of people, they're not going to like me right now, but this is New York.
Yeah.
Oh, the barge is still there floating with the plywoods on the side.
That's hilarious. You got to be kidding me.
Yep. And the reason why I said it's New York, I'm sorry, but I'm observer still, and till my last breath, I'll be always comparing things and observing things. I wasn't born over here.
Sure.
And I found things in New York, they're really not being that, on occasions, they're not being that meticulous. A lot of things are just put it together. If it floats or if it works this way, let it be. So this is one of that example where it floats, it's okay, let it be.
Well, surely the plywood's going to have to be treated. I mean, they're going to have to paint it or something. It's going to rot away.
Well, something will happen. I don't think that they'll treat it. Oh, if they have a chance, they'll tow it away. It's been a year right now. So they'll either tow it away or it'll sink and I will have another job.
Well, there you go.
Well, I can only do so much. I can't change somebody's outlook on things. But the barge is up, and it was basically single-handed for 3 weeks. So that was huge for me.
Well, that's awesome. And how thick was the hole that you had to drill in? How thick is that? I have no idea.
Oh, it's not that thick. I think it could be like I don't know, like a little bit over the 1/8 of the inch, sometimes like 1/4 inch. But your shoulder, if you imagine yourself pressing against something and swimming your fins against something, I had also like a big magnets to hold myself against. Mm-hmm. But drilling 1,000 holes with your shoulder and with pressing on a gun, my shoulder, my hand was shot. You know, my forearm.
Right.
And you're doing that in a moving water. You have no ground to step on. You're holding, you're swimming, and you're drilling. Then the drill bit breaks. You do it all over again. It was a lot.
It's like juggling while riding a bicycle.
Yeah. So.
How was the drill powered? Battery powered? Air powered?
I have a great set of underwater cordless tools from my friend from Nemo Power Tool Company, I guess it's a name, but the brand of the tools is Nemo, and it's cordless power tool underwater. Great stuff. I have grinder, drill, impact, amazing stuff. So it's all battery. You know. How
expensive is that equipment compared to the other normal equipment?
Well, the other version would be to have the hydraulic stuff, hydraulic powered tools. And my drill is about 2,000 or 2,500, and the hydraulic setup would probably run you about 7,000, and it's a lot more equipment. It's not worth it for this particular, you know. So it was great. I sent the pictures to that Nemo company, and I sent a picture of the drill and the impact I was using. I was like, these two tools brought up this barge. You should be proud of yourself. So they did like the story.
That's awesome. So what's the most unique thing you found underwater? Something just totally unexpected.
I don't have like much of the unexpected. Usually we knew what we're looking for. But the beautiful thing, what I saw, I rigged up old tugboat engine, maybe 40 or 50s. And when that engine came up, when the big crane actually lifted up, there was a lot of brass, unique, really good craftsmanship on it. So I did like that. It was a huge engine, and with every valve cover was brass. Everything was brass on it. It was amazing.
I bet it was gorgeous.
Yeah, it was a gorgeous stuff.
Especially all cleaned up and polished.
Yep. But unfortunately, I think it just went to salvage yard, which is, Another beautiful thing, I remember once we pulled up the sailboat, and it was all, I believe, mahogany. I'm not the expert on it, but I think it was all built by wood made out of the planks. So it has a beautiful brass portholes. Every single pulley, every single clip was brass. Every single one. There was not a piece of the stainless steel. It was everything brass. So all the sails, hooks and fittings and all the hardware, all brass. That was a beautiful boat we pulled up.
Is brass pretty resistant against salt water?
The brass is really good. It gets like green, but once you clean it, or if you leave that old patina, it always has the value. It's a beautiful stuff. The interesting thing, like a lot of times I get the calls for the boats, tugboats or dinner cruise boats, that stuff gets caught in their propeller. Especially in New York Harbor, there are a lot of floating debris. Some of the debris is floating right below the water level, 2 feet down, 5 feet down. And I found like a big piling in a propeller, the washing machine in a propeller.
That's crazy.
Yep. And once I got call at night, there was a big dinner cruise boat, was like something over 200 feet. And they had the big hawser line over 2 propellers. The propellers are about 40 inches in diameter. When I got down there at night, it was the emergency call. So we arrived. Coast Guard evacuated the passengers. The current was like 4 knots. I jumped in the water. I got swept under the boat like right away. And I couldn't see the propeller. That was how much line. That 40-inch propeller was covered in line. And the line extended to the other side of the boat, and the other propeller was wrapped in the line. I could only see the tips of the blades. And the line was connected to the mooring. Mooring is the big, huge steel ball, size like the little electric smart car, huge floating ball. And that ball is anchored down to the riverbed. So the boat was basically trapped to that mooring ball. The line was tight. Everything had a lot of tension. About half of that mooring ball was sucked under the water to the stern of the boat. So you can only imagine how much tension on those lines were.
Sure.
So that was the one job when I first got up, and I say, well, we can't do anything about it. That was the first time in life when I say, I cannot do anything about it. The tension on the lines, the amount of the lines, that was amazing. But at the end, I did it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is this a steel line or a rope?
Oh, it was a rope, but the rope was like, I would say, like 6-inch in diameter.
Whew.
And going from one propeller shaft across the boat to the other propeller shaft, the tension was so high that it felt like it's a steel. So I went on that line from one propeller to another, just like you see the squirrels going on the electric lines. So the current was pushing me right against it. and was running right under the hull of the boat. So I'm holding onto that line not to be swept all the way under the boat.
Mm-hmm.
Ran over to the other propeller, assessed the situation, came up, was horrified, got my another thing on a boat, and I say, well, I'll do another dive. Maybe I'll get a little bit more edges, a little bit less edges, and I'll be able to do the job. So I got in there again. The current crushed me against against the rudder. I remember my hip hit the rudder really bad.
Ouch.
I landed on the propeller like a fly on a wall. And I'm like, gosh, the current is strong. And I started to cut. And you have to make a strategy, what to cut first, what to cut after. Mm-hmm. And every single cut you could hear cracking in a steel as a tension was releasing. Mm-hmm. So if I made a cut and it released this tension on a steel between the propellers, you could hear under the water the banging, the sound of the steel. So after the whole night of cutting, the boat was actually set free and they were able to drive.
Nice.
So
I'm just curious what kind of price range it would cost to have you come out and do that type of thing.
Well,
not specific, but I don't know if it's a $500 charge or a $500,000 charge.
Okay. Trying to figure out how to answer that. All right. So it's a little bit over 500 to start.
Right. Just to show up.
Yeah, a little bit more over, and I usually include up to 2 hours of water time. It also depends on the job, but that would be the start. And then I set up the hourly charges after that. If there are any special tools, then I actually include some price for using the tool, because every tool will die one day and needs to be replaced. Mm-hmm. So
very custom pricing.
A little custom pricing, but like I said, the first 2 hours are set in a first price range, and then I go every hour as an additional charge. So it is translucent. When people call me, they get the sense how much stuff will cost. It's not just the answer, it'll depend. I tell them almost exactly what it's going to cost. And if it takes more than 2 hours, they know what they're up against every single hour.
And so if you come out and you do analysis and you're doing the research, and after your 2 hours, you're like, look, this isn't something I'm going to do, but you still showed up, they still pay for you to come out there and assess the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I have jobs where I look for things. People drop something in the water and I tell them this is how much it's going to cost. And many times I drop down into the water. 2 minutes later, I'm up and I have their whatever they lost, the object. So 2 minutes later, my price is for 2 hours.
Exactly.
Because I have to get paid for the day.
Sure.
Otherwise, I'll go to a different job where I can get paid for the day.
Right.
So it could be a 1 minute job and the price will be for the first 2 hours.
Sure. Makes perfect good sense.
The equipment is not cheap. On a basic dive, simple, where I just go down there with no tools in the wintertime, I probably carry around $12,000 of equipment. Mm-hmm. So that's without any tools.
Have you had to ever search? This is just kind of an esoteric question. Have you ever worked with any police or anything looking for any, like bodies, anything like that?
I did not. And interestingly enough, you open up that question, but unfortunately, I was nearly witness of the situation where the victim went into the water and drowned, and I was 2 minutes away from that scene, not knowing that anything is happening, and I had all my gear on me, and I felt very kind of angry that if I would have known it, you never know. Maybe there was a chance.
Sure.
So I hope that there would be like some kind of the network of people between the fire departments, the Marine units. If they can have some volunteers, maybe have the training together, and if something happens, they can reach out to them and see, is anybody nearby to that location, because time is the essence.
Absolutely.
So this was unpleasant experience for me, and I wish that if I would have some kind of alarm on the phone, then I would say, okay, I'm right here. I know it's happening. And you never know. So no, I never worked with the police, although I tried to ask, but they have their own forces and they're very close to anybody else to, get into.
Sure. Well, you've been doing this now for how many years? 4 years?
Yeah, as my own company, a little over 3 years.
3 years. And how many years do you plan on continuing to do this?
Oh, not that long, because I have other plans in life. But I would say like another 3 years.
Okay.
Another 3 years, and we'll see. We'll see. Maybe more. So far, I enjoy it very much. I love my clients, and they always say, call Z because he gets it done.
Sure.
That's the way I go.
So you mentioned you have future plans. Any insight on those?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. I come across a lot of environmental issues, and they lurking under the water. People not aware of that. However, they all begin above the water.
You're talking about like a 55-gallon drum or something sitting underwater, maybe leaking?
That too. There are a lot of things that go to the bottom of the river or the oceans around New York.
Okay.
A lot of stuff, equipment go under knowingly and willingly, just because there is no control, there is no follow-up on owning the equipment, and a lot of that stuff just goes under because it's a easier way to dispose of things.
Right.
And they all have the petroleum products in there: hydraulic oil, engine oil, diesel fuel, gasoline. So I see all those things down on the bottom, all the equipment. And just because, like I said, there is no follow-up, and it could be very simply fixed. But when I say the equipment, I may see 50 large. I'm not going to tell you what equipment, but you can probably figure that out. What was floating before, I see the graveyards with 50 pieces where people knowingly dump it.
Okay.
That's just not right.
No, it's not.
Yep. And there is an easy fix to it. But that has to be negotiated with the DOT and with other, legal entities to make it right.
Sure.
So that's my plan.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah. Like I said, I wasn't born here, but whatever land I live, I feel that you need to contribute to the land where you live.
Nice philosophy. It'd be great if more Americans adopted that.
Well, there are a lot of good people out there. So let's
absolutely.
Put it that way.
There's way more good people than there are bad people.
All right. Let's believe in that. That's a good positive statement.
Well, Z, it's been an interesting perspective on your whole career and what you're doing. It's not the normal, I don't think.
Yeah, it's a little different. Just to give you a little insight, like it's mostly me working in my company. And last year I had about 500 tank fills on my own. That's a lot.
Are we talking about, like you've seen in movies and things, these really large tanks?
No, like the air tanks, what you carry on your back.
Right.
Well, so I had over 500 of them filled just for myself last year. It was like, $4,000 worth of bill just for the air, just for me to breathe. Mm-hmm. So that was interesting when the shop told me this is what I got. And I'm like, you know what, for one guy operation, that's a lot. Having 365 days a year and over 500 fills, that's a lot.
A lot of time underwater.
A lot of time in the water. Absolutely. So that kind of like sums it up. Like a lot of things what I do. I've done cool things like using the jackhammer under the water. That was fun. pouring the concrete underwater. That was interesting. And I also enjoy my fun life, I would say. I'm a scuba diving instructor.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that influence I can do for some people to change something in their life for better. That's like the most rewarding stuff. I reward myself seeing that fear some people may have, turning it into a passion. It's fantastic.
That's outstanding.
I'm currently writing the book about the salvage diving because I thought it would be nice to give people all the tricks of the trade. If anybody will be like me ever and say, well, I would like to change my career, do something different, they don't have to go through the hardship to figure out how to do things and what tools, this and that. So I'm putting the book together, which would be page by page on every type of the job, plus how to open up this business, what to do, how to advertise. So I'm putting that manual, how to become the commercial salvage diver and how to make it as a business, step by step. So people don't have to go through, figure things out and all the hardship.
Even though I never plan on diving or even becoming trained at all in that, it will be an interesting book to read. When you do release it and it's out there, let me know so I can put out a plug for it. But that's got to be an interesting read. I assume you're going to include like personal stories.
Yeah, that would be there too, but it'll be like literally a manual. Let's say you need to patch the barge. It'll be exactly what systems, what types, how to do it, how long is it going to take. It'll be manual step by step, like the manual. There are not going to be any gray areas because everything what I came across in life, I never really saw the full manual for things what I'm doing. There was always some gray areas. So in my book, it's going to be different.
Mm-hmm. Sounds great.
Yeah, it takes time.
Sure.
Yeah.
When do you think it'll be coming out?
I would say it's going to take me a year. I'm not rushing with it. It's just like the hobby. Mm-hmm. It's like when it's out there and people are happy with it, that's all I want. I don't think it's a moneymaker. I'm not looking at it that way. I just want to satisfy myself that I could help other people if they want to fulfill their dream in this area.
Right.
So
I think that's great.
Yeah, it's going to take time, but I'm going to reward myself mostly by releasing the book, that I've done something what I can leave behind.
Absolutely. Well, Z, we're going to go here in a second.
Okay.
But before we do, anything else that you'd like to add? Because I really appreciate you coming on, but you've been giving out a lot of good information.
I think that kind of like sums it all up. I have just a place where I live. I have the entire room, which I call a dive room, and the room became too small. It's all the equipment and tools and stuff. So that my whole big bedroom is dedicated just to the dive stuff. And I'll be happy if you want. I'll send you shirt or something because people love the logo I designed. It's a very unique logo. I'm giving out the hats and shirts, T-shirts. There is one guy who says, I love the logo. I'm going to have it tattooed. People give me almost every day. I have a thumbs up when they see logo on my truck. Everybody says, this is such a cool logo. So that's the one thing what I'm very proud of. That design of the logo has a Poseidon coming out of the porthole. It's really cool stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that would be it. Basically, the message at the end is, I would say whatever you do in life, do not be afraid before you do anything and just go do it. Don't analyze the problems. They will come at the right time. Just keep doing it. Do it. That's what I would say to everybody.
Z, that's awesome. Thank you so much for being on Blue Collar Voices. And when this is released, I'll definitely let you know.
Well, it was fun. I was very, very nervous. You made it very easy for me. I appreciate it, and I hope that people will have the great time to listen to that.
Outstanding. Thank you, Z.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Hey guys, before you go, two things. The first is, I'm looking for more great guests for the Blue Collar Voices show. Basically, I'm looking for those that excel in the blue collar arena and have actually got their hands dirty, truly understanding what it is like to do the work. Now, the second thing, and exciting, hey, at least for me, I am planning a road trip. Phase 1 is building a list of locations to visit. Some locations will be just a meet and greet. Others will be on-site audio and or video. Please check out the website for more information. I'd love to hear from you. Email me at johnc@bluecollarvoices.com. You can also hit me up on LinkedIn. Thanks all. Looking forward to hearing from you. Blue Collar Voices is produced by John Chapman, and all audio, video, graphics are created and edited by John Chapman. Blue Collar Voices is a DR7 Media production.
I'll be back.